Today, it is that time of the month where we are going to be playing our November TBR game. I look forward to this game every month and I just get so excited to play it because I never know how it's going to treat me. It's always a surprise. And I just enjoy building my monthly TBR through this game. October was a anomaly, I feel, because it treated me so nicely that I'm a little concerned about how this November one is going to go. I don't know. We'll see if it's this fall game board is just a great game board to play on for me, or if it was a one-off in October and we're going to go back to our not so nice TBR game. We're going to find out soon. I still can't believe that we're about to build a November TBR because that means that there's only one more month left in 2025. And that is just, I don't know, that is just crazy to me. But here we are. We're about to be in November. Today is actually, what is today? October 26th is Sunday. But when this goes up, it's going to be November 1st and the start of a brand new month. So let's go ahead. But before we start this game, let's see how we did in October. And spoiler, it did not go so well. I did not read that much in October from my TBR just because the first 2 weeks I just didn't have a lot of time to read, so I kind of wasn't able to read from my TBR until this past week. So you're going to see how poorly I did. All right. So starting off, we had a prompt where we had to read a book that I've owned for a long time. And I'm actually almost through The Magician's Guild, which is book 1 of the Black Magician Trilogy by Trudy Canavan. So this will be completed by the end of the month. Then we had to read a book that had Scarlet, Red, or Rust on the cover. Did not get to this prompt. Probably will not by the end of the month either. Then we had a book that had food on the cover. Also did not read either choices for this prompt. Then we had to read a book that is set at a college or a university. I did read Dark Fae by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, so this prompt is complete. So that's 2 books. And then our last prompt card was a series prompt where we had to read the next book in the Percy Jackson series, which was Wrath of the Triple Goddess. Have not read this. May get to this by the end of the month though. All right, and then for our jar pulls. For our new release jar, we had Close Knit by Jenny Colgan and Liar Society by Alison Gerber. Did not get to either of those. And then for our Science Fiction Fantasy Award-winning / nominee jar, we had Kalki by Gore Vidal and Alien Nate by Dave Wayman, and did not read either of those. So as you can see, we have about 2 books completed. So not the greatest month, but I feel much more confident about November because of the way my schedule is. I should be able to fit more time in for reading, especially in the first couple of weeks of November, which will help. So I'm hopeful for November. So hopefully this TBR game will be nice to me as well. Either way, because we did not complete it, I think we're up to 2 books that we have to pull for the first 4 jar pulls that we do. Who knows? We may not get 4 jar pulls, so it may not matter. But let's go ahead, bring up our fall game board, which is one of my favorite game boards, and we will put down our tokens, and we'll go ahead and do our first roll. All right, we are back with our pumpkin board that did so well for us in October. Hopefully that trend will continue in November. But let's first get down our tokens, and then we'll take a look at the board and then do our first roll. All right, so this is a setup for November. There's a couple of dangerous spots in here, mostly up here where we have a lot of time for vacation tokens. And then we have 2 time for vacation tokens down here, which is especially dangerous because it's so close to the end of the board. I'm not sure how this game is going to go today, but I guess we're about to find out. Let's go ahead and do this first roll. And we got a 5. Landed on orange. Okay, we have a couple of scary spots on the board, I won't lie, but it can sometimes be good that they're clumped together as well, right? Because if we get a big number, we could go right past them maybe. I guess we'll find out. But anyway, for our first roll, we rolled a 5 and we landed on orange. This is our orange bag. In here, we have prompts that have to do with the cover of the book. We also have our miscellaneous prompts and some serious prompts in here as well. Let me just mix these up real quick and we shall see what we get. I feel really far away from the camera today. I just realized I'm really far away. All right, time out. You're going to see the camera angle change. Just give me a second. All right, now I can actually reach the camera to show you the card. All right, here we go. All right, let's split the deck here. We'll go with this card. Our first prompt for November is going to be a cover prompt. And it is a cover with a random color. All right, that means we have to bring up our spinning wheel and choose a random color. So just give me a sec. All right, here is our color cover wheel. Let's spin it and see what color we're going with. Here we go. Hopefully it's a good one. All right, moment of truth. Which color will we have? Oh, pink, purple, or blue? Purple. All right, so we have to find a book that has that is mainly a purple color. Here we go. All right, we're going to start with our physical books first. Savage Fae is blue, so that won't work. I do have a goal to get some like cozy books onto my November TBR because that's the game that we play in November is our cozy reading game. So if I can get some of those books onto this TBR, that could help as well. But I don't know if any of them are purple. Oh, I do know one is purple. I know exactly what book we're going with. All right. This book right here. So this is definitely a purple book. It is The Untold Story by Genevieve Cogman, which is the 8th book, I believe, and I think maybe the last book, I'm not sure, in her An Invisible Library series. I have really enjoyed the series. So this book follows Irene, who is a librarian, but not just any librarian. She is a librarian of the Invisible Library, which is a library that is housed between universes, and she has some magical powers that allow her to kind of traverse across alternate worlds. Mostly, all of them are Earths. And there she has to keep the balance between the dragons and the Fae. And to do that, she has missions where she has to find certain books on certain worlds and bring them back to the library. And each book she has kind of like a mission that she has to complete that gets her into all sorts of trouble. She has some companions both on the dragon side and on the fae side that typically help her or hinder her depending on who they are. And they're all just kind of like fun, cozy books, kind of like alternative history books as well. And I'm super excited to get this one onto my TBR and hopefully complete a 8-book series. We'll see if I get to it. Hopefully I will. All right, now we have to choose a Kindle book. All right, the Kindle book I'm going with is Henrietta by MC Beaton. I think this is purple. When I printed it out, it looks purple. It could also be pink, but I think it's purple enough. Most likely we're going to be reading the other book anyway. So anyway, this is a Regency romance book that follows Henrietta, hence the name of the book, who is the vicar's sister. And she inherits a fortune from her Aunt Hester, which allows her to enter the season and hopefully catch the eye of Beau Reckford. So that is kind of the gist of the story, and that will be our Kindle option for this. So there we have it, our first books of November. Now, we started off the game strong, but we're getting into some danger territory. Let's bring up our game board and do our second roll. All right, roll number 2. We're approaching danger zone number 1. Let's see what we get. An 8. Red. All right, we rolled an 8. We went all the way past all the boarding passes, the time for vacation tokens that would have made us go backwards. We just flew right over them. And we landed on red. So this is our red bag. That's actually pink, but we go with this. So let's see what cards we're choosing from next. All right, looks like we have some prompts that have to do with the plot of the story, and then of course our miscellaneous and our series prompts. So let's hope we get another good prompt to continue this game. Okay, we're gonna mix these up real quick. All right, we're gonna split the deck. Think right there, and then this is going to be our second prompt of the game. All right, looks like it's a plot prompt. And it says, a genre I don't typically read. All right. Well, read well, I read a lot of fantasies and romances, so we may have to go away from those genres. Let's see what we have. Pretty much everything up here is in the fantasy realm. All right, I think what we'll go with is a thriller. I do read thrillers. I just don't, they're not a genre that I read a ton of, but it's not because I don't like them. I just happen to read a lot more fantasy and romance, but we're going to go with a thriller, and that is The Passengers by John Mars. I had this on my TBR once before, and someone mentioned that they really enjoyed it, so I definitely want to get to this book. So this book is, like I said, a thriller, and what occurs in it is that a hacker hacks 8 driverless cars and sets them on a fatal collision course. If the authorities interfere with these vehicles before they reach their destination, they will explode and kill everyone on board. And now the hacker is insisting that the public and a select jury judge who should live and who should die. It's basically going to be a trial by social media and a popularity contest that will be fought to the death. So, thriller, genre I don't read a ton of, but I do enjoy. So, we're going to add this to our TBR and see how it is. Definitely not going to come up on our cozy game though. All right, let me take a look on our Kindle book choices and choose an option from there. For those who are new, when I choose a Kindle and the physical book for a prompt, I only have to read one of the two, just so you know. But this gives me a little bit more options and wiggle room. All right, we're going to go with a horror book because that is definitely a genre I do not read a lot of. And it is going to be The Fireman by Joe Hill. So what happens in this book is there's a new plague that has kind of taken over the world. It is called the Draco Incendia Trichophyton. And what happens is it causes fires, basically. It causes people who get it to burst into flames. Definitely sounds a little horrifying. The book follows Harper Grayson, who is a nurse, and her and her husband kind of make this pact that if either of them were to contract it, they're going to take matters into their own hands, basically. But then Harper ends up contracting it, but she also happens to be pregnant, and she wants to live at least until she can get her pregnancy to term. Out in the world, or at least in New Hampshire where Harper lives though, there is this man called the Fireman who has the virus, but he has figured out a way to control the fire, so he has not burst into flames. And Harper is determined to learn the fireman's secret so that she can carry her pregnancy to term. So that is kind of what the story is about. So we'll add that to our TBR. Not sure which of the two I'll go with. Leaning towards The Passengers, but we'll see. All right, so those are our second books of November. All right, so far so good. Let's bring up the game board and go ahead and do this third roll. So far we're doing well. Let's see where we are for roll number 3. A 7. Orange. A 7. That's amazing. We are just flying through this game board. And this time we landed on orange again, so let's grab that bag. All right, so these again are our cover prompts, miscellaneous prompts, and series prompts. All right, so this definitely gave me a fun prompt for the first time with the color of the cover. Let's see what we get for our second prompt from this bag. All right, let's split the bag. Let's split the card deck there. This is going to be our card. It is a series prompt, so we don't have a choice in what book we choose. Is it going to focus? There we go. Focused. All right. It is, oh no, this is a cover prompt, not even a series prompt. Ignore all that. So this is a cover that has a book on it. So that's fun. Hopefully I have some of those. We're going to find out. Let's take a look. I was hoping that the Emily Wilde book would have a book on it, but it does not. Neither does Arcana Academy. Ooh, I wonder if Savage Fae does. No, of course not. All right, I found a book with a book on the cover. It's a TBR veteran. It's been on my TBR a couple times, and it is Infinity Alchemist by Kaysen Calendar. And you can see there's a book right there, so it makes the prompt. This is a fantasy book. I think it's YA fantasy, and it takes place at the Lancaster College of Alchemic Science, and it follows Ash. So Ash was rejected by Lancaster College, but he takes a job as the school's groundskeeper instead and attempts to learn alchemy in secret. But then he's discovered by one of the students whose name is Ramsey, and Ash is sure he's about to be arrested, but instead Ramsey makes him an offer and says that he will keep Ash's secret if Ash helps him find the legendary Book of Source, which is a sacred text that gives this reader extraordinary power. So that is kind of the gist of the book. So it's a academia fantasy book, which a genre that I truly enjoy. And I definitely need to get around to reading this. So I'm happy that I can get this onto my TBR. But we do have to choose a Kindle book as well. So we do have two options in the Kindle side of things. We have a romance and a fantasy book. So let's kind of look at them and see which one we're going to go with. So first up, we have The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence, which is the first book in his The Library Trilogy series. This is a fantasy one. I don't know too much what it is about from its description, but it follows a boy who has been trapped in this vast library for his entire life, which, you know, is not too bad, I guess. And there's a girl who has been living in a tiny settlement out on the dust where nightmares stalk and no one goes. And now their stories are kind of spiraling around each other across worlds and time. And then I guess there's some sort of journey. I don't know. That's about what I got from the description. So that's our option number one. Then we have the Paris chapter, which is our romance book. It's by Victoria Walters, and it takes place in Paris. It follows romance author Tessa Elliott. Oh, I forgot. So the book, the cover of The Book That Wouldn't Burn is of a library, so you can see all the books there. And then for the Paris chapter, she's holding a book, so they both complete our prompt. Just wanted to mention that. Anyway, the Paris chapter follows Tessa Elliott, who is a romance author who is having a little bit of writer's block. And to help with that, she decides to go on a break to Paris. But when she arrives at her B&B, she's surprised to find that her ex's best friend, Ethan, has made himself at home because he was told the place was empty. Unfortunately, it is Paris Fashion Week, so there's no other options, nowhere else for her to go. So her and Ethan decide to compromise, I guess it's a compromise, and share the B&B. And they start to feel some attraction with each other. So the question that this book asks is, will Tessa be able to open her heart and her laptop ever again? So that's our other option. I think these both sound good, but we already have a bunch of fantasy on here, and we don't have any romance yet. No contemporary romance, and I love books set in Europe, so I think we're gonna go with the Paris chapter for our Kindle option for this prompt. All right, let's bring up this game board again and go ahead and do our fourth roll. On to roll number 4. And we got a 5. And another orange. This couldn't be going any better. We rolled a 5 and we again landed on orange. So let's just grab the bag that I just put away, which is right here. Again, our cover prompts, miscellaneous, and series prompts. Maybe it is this game board. Maybe the fall game board just wants to be nice to me. All right, let's mix these up and choose our fourth prompt of the game. All right, and we've had no jar pulls, so we haven't had to pull any double books yet, so that's great. All right, let's split the deck near the end for once. All right, we're gonna go there. This one's gonna be our prompt. It's another cover prompt, and it is a cover with words of a random color. This game really wants me to do the spin wheel this game. So give me a second. Let me pull that spin wheel back up and we'll go ahead and spin it. All right, let's spin this wheel again. And this time we are going to do the color. The words have to be in that color on the cover of the book, if that makes sense. All right, here we go. Let's do this. I don't know which color I want. I don't know what gives us the most options. Let's find out. Oh, it's going, oh, white, pink. Ooh, pink. I feel like pink is going to be hard, but I guess we're gonna find out. All right, we need pink words on the cover. Here we go. Oh. This just worked out so well. We are going with Love, Sugar, Magic, A Mixture of Mischief, which is book 3 and the last book in the Love, Sugar, Magic series by Anna Mariano. This is a middle grade fantasy series that is a lot of fun, and it could come up in my cozy reading game later this month as well, so it's perfect. And you can see on the cover, these words are in pink. Yay. All right. So this book follows the family of Leo Lograno, and her family just happens to be a family of witches. And in their family, each sister gets a certain type of magic depending on their birth order. So the firstborn gets one type of magic, the secondborn a different type, and so on. And Leo is the youngest in her family, and she's still waiting to figure out what powers she is going to have. So I'm guessing in this book, we may figure that out. We'll see. And these are just fun middle grade reads, and I really do enjoy them. And they're also nice and quick as well. So that will be our physical book choice for this prompt. Hopefully, we have a good option on the Kindle side of things as well, if we have an option. We'll see. All right, I did find one option. It's a young adult book, and it is Unbelievable by Sarah Shepard, which is the the third or fourth book in the Pretty Little Liar series? Let me look. It's the fourth book. So this series follows a group of girls who were really close best friends until one day one of their friends end up disappearing and no one knows what happened to her. And the other friends just kind of fell apart or fell away from each other. And this story kind of follows what happens after all that occurred. Or not the story, but the entire series kind of follows that. So that will be our option. You can see that there are pink letters for the title, so fits our prompt. All right, so we have a middle grade and a young adult option for this prompt, so not too bad. Things are going pretty good. I do say so myself. Hopefully I don't jinx it. But let's go ahead and pull up our game board for roll number 5. All right, we're coming up to the last of the board for roll number 6. This is either going to go really well or really not well. Let's find out which way. A 3. And that's our yearly TBR jar. All right. This time we landed on a token, and this is our yearly TBR token, which means we'll be drawing 2 books out of our yearly TBR jar, which is this jar here. So in here are my 25 books to read in 2025, which I have been failing at, basically. I have not been doing too well in this challenge at all. So I guess the game is telling me that I need to improve on that. So since this is our first jar pull, we will be choosing 2 books out of here for this one roll. And we do have to read both of them for this. All right, here we go. Hopefully these are good options. There's some harder books on here as well. All right, we're going to start with this one here. Sometimes these show up, sometimes they don't, but I'll put the book cover up here if it doesn't. All right. So this is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I don't even remember having this on my TBR, but I must have. I think I did. So this is a classic book, obviously, and the book follows Jane Eyre. I know that much. It's a gothic story, so actually this is a good choice for November. With the fall feeling, the gothic stories are usually good to read around this time of year, and I don't know too much else about it. Let me look it up real quick. So Jane Eyre is an orphan who grows up in the home of her heartless aunt, where she endures loneliness and cruelty. And then she finds employment as the governess of a young ward of Mr. Rochester. And there in Thornfield Hall, she starts to develop feelings for Mr. Rochester, but also along the way, she comes to find out the secret of Thornfield Hall. So the question is, should she stay with Rochester and live with the consequences, or follow her convictions, even if it means leaving the man she loves? It's definitely a longer book as well, but that's okay because we're doing good so far. So hopefully we continue to do well and we don't hit one of those time for vacation boarding passes at the end. All right, here's our second draw for this. All right. I know there's one other classic in here, so I'm hoping to kind of avoid that because I think one classic a month is enough. All right, we're going to go with this one here. All right, our second book on my 25 book stream 2025 is a book I already read, How to Solve Your Own Murder. That one's been read. Don't have to read that one again. That was a pretty good book. It is a series, so I definitely want to read the rest of that series. All right, let's try this again. There are some books in here I've already read because I've been too lazy to go through and take them out if I read them for a different reason. All right, here we go again. This one is An Education in Malice, which I have not read. I don't think this is a book I have in the physical form. I think this is a Kindle book for me. So this is a gothic book as well as a dark academia book, so perfect for the season. The book is set at St. Perpetua's College in Massachusetts and follows Laura Sheridan, who starts a academic rivalry with Camellia, and together they are drawn into the confidence of their demanding poetry professor De La Fontaine, who holds her own dark obsessions with Carmelia. As their rivalry blossoms into something far more delicious, so now the two of them become tangled in kind of a sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty professors, and dark magic. So it's a good dark academia book. I love dark academia. If you've seen this channel, if you've seen any videos on this channel, you'll know that. And I think the jar was nice to us. We got a gothic classic and we got a gothic dark academia book, which is perfect for the month of November. Fits right into the autumnal vibes. There we go. But that's it for roll number 5. So let's bring up the game board and go ahead and do roll number 6. All right, here we are for roll number 6. I'm pretty sure I said roll number 6 last time, but this time it's truly roll number 6. Here we go. And that is a 5. And another yearly TBR jar. So this time we rolled a 5, and we again landed on a yearly TBR jar. So we're going to choose 2 more books out of this jar. Good thing I didn't put it away. All right, we are really going to get through some of my yearly TBR books this month, it looks like. All right, let's see. I don't even know what books I went out of here. I think a lot of them are on the longer side. All right, here we go. We are going with, Heartless Hunter, also known as the Crimson Moth. I don't know if that will do anything. Which I have right here. All right, I have not read this book yet. I know this has been a very popular fantasy book, and I haven't heard as much about the sequel actually, but I think the sequel is good as well. I'm waiting for my copy to arrive. I got one of the special editions, so it's not coming till like January. But that's good, because if I read that this month, then I'll remember it for when the book actually arrives here. But anyway, this is a book that follows Rune, who's a witch, but she has to hide what she is because after a devastating revolution, witches have become kind of like outcasts. She also is part of a witch vigilante group who rescues witches from being purged, but when a rescue goes wrong, to throw the witch hunters off of her scent, basically, she begins courting the handsome Gideon Sharp, who also happens to be a notorious and unforgiving witch hunter loyal to the revolution. So that is the book that we will add from our TBR jar. TBR jar is being really nice to us. That's awesome. And then we do have to choose the second one because of my rule when I fail my TBRs. I just like to make it harder for myself. Though so far, this hasn't been too bad of a TBR, I do gotta say. All right, we got the Atlas Paradox, which is the second book in the Atlas series by Olivia Blake. And I enjoyed the first book. I've read the first, I don't know, like chapter of the second book and was having trouble getting back into it. So we'll have to try to get into it this time around, obviously. So what this series is about is 6 people, 6 magical magicians, academicians, I guess is what they're calling it, are recruited to the Alexandrian Society, which is a exclusive society that basically takes care of lost knowledge. And they're also the foremost secret society of magicians in the world. And only the 6 most talented magicians are recruited to apply. So basically, they have 1 year after recruitment to qualify for initiation. And during that time, they have kind of this preliminary access to the society's archives. And at the end of the year, one of the 6 will be eliminated. The Atlas Paradox is obviously the second book in the series. So we'll see I'll see what happens in it, and hopefully I can get a little bit more into this book. I know the second and third books weren't as well liked as the first, but I'm hoping I can get back into the story. Like I said, I enjoyed the first one. I just had so much trouble getting through the first, I don't know, 20 or 30 pages in this book, but I have faith in myself to be able to read this time around. So that will be our second book from our yearly TBR jar. All right. We're going to bring up the game board, but as you'll see, things are either going to go really well with this roll or really badly. Because if we get a 1, that means we are going all the way back to the beginning. But anything other than the 1, which means we're pretty much done with the game. So let's bring up this game board for roll number 7 and hope for the best. All right, here we are. Roll number 7. This is going to be the moment of truth. We need anything but a 1. Let's see what happens. A 3. And that completes our November TBR game. All right, we got a 3. That means our TBR, our game, is done. All that is left is to pull our 2 books out of our Science Fiction Fantasy Award winning / nominee jar, and we will have our books for the month of November. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so in here are about 70 books that were either nominated or won a award in the science fiction fantasy category. The awards that I've used are the Hugo Award, the Locus Award, the Nebula Award, and the Golden Duck Awards, which are the young adult and middle grade science fiction fantasy award books. Or not books, but awards. There we go. So in here, we basically have books that range from middle grade all the way up to adult. Let's see what we get. The only thing these books have in similar is they fall into the speculative genre. So here we go. There's a lot in here. We're going to choose 2. I'm hoping for at least 1 middle grade. All right, here's our first one right here. And I just dropped it on the floor, so let me grab it. I promise you it's the same one. I'm not cheating here. All right, here we go. Our first book from this jar is Honor Among Thieves. No idea what this is about. But it is by Rachel Kane and Anne Aguirre. Let me look that up and I'll let you know what this is about. So it is a series. It's book 1 in the Honor series. It does look like it's a young adult science fiction book, so yay for young adult. It is long though, 480 pages. Okay, so this book follows petty criminal Zara Cole, who has a painful past that's made her stronger than most, which is why she chose life in New Detroit instead of moving to Mars with her family. When Zara ends up committing a crime that has her running scared, jail might be exactly where she's headed. But instead, she ends up being recruited by the Honors, which is this elite team of humans selected by the Leviathan, which is a race of alien sentient ships, to explore the outer reaches of the universe as their passengers. So Zara seizes the chance to leave Earth, but when she meets Nadim, the alien ship she's assigned, Zara starts to feel at home for the first time, but nothing could have prepared her for the dark, ominous truths that lurk behind the alluring glitter of starlight. All right, this doesn't sound too bad. I'm actually excited to read this one. It sounds intriguing. It sounds interesting. Going aboard an alien ship and seeing what's out there. And I haven't read a lot of science fiction lately, and I've kind of missed that genre, so I'm excited about this book choice. So that will be book option, or not book option. This will be book number 1 from our jar. Let's go ahead. Hopefully this gives us another good one. All right, let's mix these up again. Okay, let's see. We're gonna go for, I don't even know. All right, this one right here. Okay. Time I'll try not to drop it. All right, this is our last book for November. Hopefully it's a good one. Oh my gosh, can't even open it. Here we go. Not the prettiest cover. This is called The Strange, okay? And it's by Nathan Ballingpud. Never heard of this one. We're gonna have to look this one up as well. All right, so it's a science fiction, but also a alternative history book. So it looks like the book is set in 1931 in New Galveston, Mars. So we're in Mars in 1930, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, 14-year-old Annabelle Crisp sets off through the wasteland of the strange to find Silas Munt's gang who have stolen her mother's voice, destroyed her father, and left her solely with a need for vengeance. Since Annabelle's mother has left Earth to care for her own ailing mother, her days in New Galveston have been spent at school and her nights at her laconic father's diner with Watson, the family kitchen engine, and dishwasher as her only companion. All right, so we have a dishwasher as a companion. Things are going well here, it sounds like. When the silence came and communication shipments from Earth to his colonies on Mars stopped, life seemed stuck in foreboding stasis until the night Silas Munt and his gang attacked. All right, well, this book does sound strange, so it seems like the title of the story is correct. But it also sounds kind of interesting, so we'll see how it is, hopefully. Because if we see how it is, that means I've actually read it, so we're going to be positive and we're gonna get through this TBR. But that does complete our TBR for November. All right, let's go ahead, run through the books we have for November. I think there's 10 of them. Yeah, 10 of them. Not too bad. All right, for a book with a random color for its words, which ended up being pink, we have A Mixture of Mischief by Anna Mariano, or Unbelievable by Sarah Shepard. Most likely I'm going to read A Mixture of Mischief because I really want to finish this series. For a book that has a book on the cover, we have Infinity Alchemist by Kaysen Callender and The Paris Chapter by Victoria Walters. These both sound pretty good. I'm leaning towards Infinity Alchemist because I've had this book on so many TBRs. I really want to get to it. But we'll see. This one could be either or. For a book from a genre I don't typically read, we have The Passengers by John Mars and The Fireman by Joe Hill. Leaning towards The Passenger. This one will most likely be the one I end up reading. For a book cover that's a random color, which happened to end up being purple, we have The Untold Story by Genevieve Cogman, the 8th book in the Invisible Library series. And we have Henrietta by MC Beaton. And I'm going to read The Untold Story most likely for this prompt. Finish up a series. All right, then for our jar pulls, we have The Crimson Moth by Kristen Sigarelli, which is from our yearly TBR jar. The other ones from that jar are Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson, and The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. And then from our science fiction fantasy award-winning / nominee jar, we have Honor Among Thieves by Rachel Kane and Anne Aguirre, and The Strange by Nathan Ballingrud, something like that. So those are our 10 books. I am very happy with how this TBR turned out. I feel like it's a good fall TBR. We have a bunch of kind of like cozy fantasies on here. We also have a thriller and then some gothic books as well. And we got a couple of science fiction books to kind of round it up. So I'm excited for this. I think this is doable. I know I say that every single month, but this month I think it is doable just the way my month is kind of scheduled. I think I can get this done. And that means we would win and get to pull away one of our double jar pulls. So I am going to do my best. This is the month, I can feel it, that we are going to get through a lot of these books. We can do this. All right, so that concludes our November TBR. The game was so nice to us again today. I'm wondering if it's our fall board. We're going to use this one more month in December because technically winter doesn't start till halfway through December. So we'll see. Maybe if it's nice to us again in December, we'll know for sure. And then maybe we just use this board year round. Like, who cares if it's spring and we're using a pumpkin, right? I don't know, because this has been the nicest of the 4 seasonal boards that we use. Yeah, so what to expect in November for my video. So obviously this TBR is coming out November 1st because that's when it's coming out. Then we are going to be doing our backlist, our Blackjack Blacklist author game, which was going to come out in the beginning of October, but like I said, didn't get a lot of reading done, so it got pushed back to November. So that will come out next week. Then we have our cozy reading game, which I'm super excited about, where we'll be reading cozy fantasies, cozy mysteries, cozy romances. And I had a lot of fun playing that game last year and can't wait to see what books the game chooses for me this year. Then we'll have our winter new release video where I choose 8 books that are coming out in December, January, and February. That will go in our new release jar and we kind of go over those books. And then the last video for November will be our December TBR, and we'll be headed into the last month of, I almost said December, the last month of 2025, which is crazy to me, but I'm excited because at that point we'll be getting into the holiday spirit as well. So those are the videos that should be coming out in November. Pretty sure I will be on time for all of those, but I'll let you know if anything gets sidetracked. And yeah, I am so happy right now with this book stack. And I just feel like this is perfect for November because the temperatures here are finally getting cooler. We're finally getting like the 50s and the 40s at night, sometimes the 30s. So it's definitely making me in the mood to get some good fall reading done. And I think a lot of these books fall into that category. So anyway, before I continue rambling on, thank you so much for watching me. Watching this, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this game as much as I did. Let me know what's on your November TBR and what books you're looking forward to. Let me know if you've read any of these books as well. Let me know what your thoughts are on them. If you want to let me know that you have watched the video, why don't we do, I'm trying to think of an emoji. How about we just do a book emoji for our prompt that said a book on the cover. So just leave some book emojis below. If you want to see future videos by me, please hit that subscribe button. Usually I do most weeks a fun just weekly reading game. So if you want to see those videos, hit that subscribe button. If you want to see my future TBR videos, hit that subscribe button as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And once again, thank you so much for hanging out with me as I get through my November TBR. And yeah, like I said, I hope your November reading month goes well and that you read a lot of books that you are looking forward to. And I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.